Tonight on ABC News Live Prime, President Trump prepares for a high-stakes meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. With a crucial new trade deal between the U.S. and China on the table in hopes of averting a costly trade war, the leaders overseeing the world's two largest economies get ready for a face-to-face.
I'm Rachel Scott, traveling with the president with a look of what to expect on tonight's meeting between President Trump and Chinese President Xi.
Hurricane Melissa makes back-to-back landfalls, one of the strongest storms to ever hit the Atlantic, leaving a trail of destruction behind. 750,000 people evacuated and at least 30 lives lost. The sheriff's deputy accused of killing 911 caller Sonia Massey in her own home, found guilty of second-degree murder. He now faces a sentence of 4 to 20 years in prison.
I'm Matt Rivers in Peoria, Illinois, with the details at the center of the 7-day trial.
Early voting is underway for key political races taking place across the country next Tuesday. Which races to watch and why? We go inside the elections by the numbers. And Dictionary.com reveals its word of the year. You may not believe the winner.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime with Linsey Davis.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Linsey Davis. Thanks so much for streaming with us. On this Wednesday night, we are tracking Hurricane Melissa's wrath, the monster storm causing widespread destruction in the Caribbean. The scope of the storm now revealed, and the death toll is rising. We'll have the storm's latest track in a moment, but we do begin with that monumental meeting half a world away. The fate of the global economy hangs in the balance. President Trump and China's President Xi face-to-face in conversation. Will there be a trade deal? Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Chinese officials have agreed to a framework around trade talks, but ultimately it's up to the two leaders to finalize the deal. What would a trade deal mean with China? We're standing by for more, but first, senior political correspondent Rachel Scott leads us off from South Korea.
Tonight, President Trump just hours away from his high-stakes meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, where he hopes to reset the relationship between the world's two largest economies and his trade war with China.
I think we're going to have a deal. I think it'll be a good deal for both. And that's really a great result. You know, that's better than fighting and going through all sorts of problems.
The president says there's a framework of a deal on everything from tariffs to fentanyl, to ending the Chinese boycott of American soybeans that has pushed some American farmers toward bankruptcy. It would also loosen restrictions on China's sale of rare earth minerals, critical for making smartphones and cars. The meeting taking place here in South Korea, which has rolled out the red carpet for President Trump, even gifting him a replica of a gold crown worn by ancient Korean royalty. The president had also hoped to meet with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un on this trip. Today, he pledged to mend ties between North and South Korea.
I know you are officially at war, but we will see what we can do to get that all straightened out.
But Kim did not publicly acknowledge Trump's invitation to meet, instead test firing a new round of missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. Tonight, as the president prepares to meet with China's President Xi, who could be president for life, Trump himself acknowledging his own time in power is limited. After feeding speculation he could run for a third term, he now says the Constitution clearly states that's not possible.
I would say that if you read it, it's pretty clear I'm not allowed to run. It's too bad. I mean, it's too bad. But we have a lot of great people.
Sounds like he's switching gears there. Rachel Scott joins us now from South Korea. Rachel, there was other news out of the White House, of course, today as well. The White House fired members of the D.C. Commission slated to review President Trump's construction projects. Tell us what happened there.
Yeah. Yes, Lindsay, as the president's here in South Korea, even as the government shutdown drags on, construction of the president's ballroom is now well underway after the east wing of the White House was completely demolished. So tonight we are learning that the president has fired all 6 members of the Art Commission that was slated to review the president's construction projects. A White House official tells us they will be replaced with appointees who are more aligned with the president's priorities. Lindsay.
Rachel Scott from South Korea for us. Thanks so much, Rachel. And for more now, we're joined again tonight by Alice Hahn, who's the director of the macroeconomic and geopolitical advisory firm Greenmantle. Alice, good to have you back. President Trump is set to meet with China's President Xi soon, their first face-to-face meeting in 6 years. Is it an understatement to say the global economy hangs in the balance?
No, I would completely agree with you, Lindsay, and I like the word monumental that you used. I think this is going to be one of the most important meetings of this year, politically for both countries and the rest of the world. top of mind, I think, will be the fentanyl-related tariffs. There are signals already that they may be reduced by 10%. Next is the soybeans issue, where China seems to already be making some concessions through 2 to 3 cargoes that they've already committed. The third item is rare earths, where I suspect there will be an extension on some of the export controls from China. And the fourth, I think that probably the biggest issue right now is going to be the chips. Will America reduce the export controls, especially for higher grade chips like the Blackwells? I think that that is top of mind because it's going to have huge ramifications for China's competitiveness in technology and AI. I think it's not a coincidence that we've got Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, there with Trump in Korea. That's going to be what I'm watching.
Are you all surprised that after months of threats, reciprocal tariffs, and with trade deadlines being extended, that so much will come down to a meeting between these two presidents?
It's very clear for both leaders that personality really matters. And my sense is that Trump really wants to have good personal relations with the Chinese President Xi Jinping. He seems to be in deal-making mode, fresh off of, I think, a diplomatic victory that he perceives in Japan. So I think that what is going to be crucial is the two of them meeting and setting a more positive tone. That is what happened in the previous Trump administration to end the first trade war in Argentina, if you recall, in the G20. This, I think, is going to be another monumental meeting that will, as Trump and Besson and the rest of the team seem to allude, set a framework for ultimately the second trade deal that we'll see in the second Trump administration.
In her reporting, Rachel Scott mentioned some of the issues that could be part of any deal: tariffs, rare earth minerals, soybeans, and fentanyl. But what about the other huge outstanding issues between the two superpowers, issues like Taiwan, TikTok, and Russia?
Well, firstly, I think TikTok is baked into the cake. I think ultimately a deal has been set that China believes is agreeable to them. The Chinese believe that they don't have to concede much because ultimately TikTok hasn't been sold according to the framework of the deal. I think that that is very much going to happen. I'm less sure about Taiwan and Russia-Ukraine. On the Russia-Ukraine front, I don't think the Chinese want to have that being a line item in negotiations right now. They certainly do not want to sacrifice their ironclad relationship with Moscow in any kind of a trade-related deal or even a geopolitical-related negotiations with the U.S. On Taiwan, that is going to be, I think, probably the most sticky point. The Chinese have made it very, very clear that, both at the military parade recently and in media statements, that Taiwan is the #1 concern for Beijing. I think over the medium-term horizon, going into 2026, that will come up again as an item of discussion in which Beijing could put pressure on Washington to commit to opposing Taiwanese independence. But I think right now the priorities for both sides, including Beijing, are to A, reduce tariff-related tensions, and B, reduce tensions related to the export controls on rare earths for the Chinese side and on chips for the American side.
Alice Hahn, we thank you so much for your time and insight. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Lindsay.
Next tonight to Melissa, the strongest storm on record to ever hit Jamaica, with winds up to 185 miles per hour. Communities underwater, roads blocked, houses destroyed. More than 70% of the island is currently without power. Lee Goldberg is standing by with the track. But first, ABC's Ike Ajachi reports on the scope of the devastation. He's been in Jamaica from the very start.
Tonight, after slamming Jamaica with 185-mile-an-hour winds, the death toll is rising across the Caribbean, and Melissa is still a powerful hurricane on the move. Search and rescue missions now underway across Jamaica. We made our way from Kingston to hard-hit St. Elizabeth Parish slowly, the roads covered with rocks and debris. The parish taking a direct hit, and Melissa came ashore like no other hurricane before it, cutting across the country like a buzzsaw. Video from police forces in the town of Black River shows residents taking refuge at their station. Authorities say they found at least 2 bodies here amid the destruction. In hard-hit Santa Cruz, where torrents of water rushed through the streets Tuesday, this is what's left of the St. Elizabeth Technical High School, the roof all but completely ripped off. Storm chaser Jonathan Petramala finding residents that rode out the storm, some telling him they literally held on for their lives.
So you had to you climbed up during the hurricane onto your roof to nail it down so it wouldn't blow away.
Yes, so it wouldn't blow away. And I see other people, residents in my area, their roof lift off, church, everything. So there was a team of us out there trying to help other people also.
Some 25,000 Jamaicans are in shelters, and some 25,000 tourists are stuck on the island. R.J. Smith shooting this video from his hotel as he rode out the storm in Montego Bay. There's destruction across the Caribbean in Melissa's wake. In Cuba, some 750,000 people remain in shelters. Officials in Haiti reporting at least 25 deaths so far. Linsey, the town of Santa Cruz is completely devastated. A wall of water and rock came rushing through the town, covering everything. Getting back to normal is going to take months. Linsey?
Our thanks to Ike Ajachi, and meteorologist Lee Goldberg is tracking Melissa for us. Lee, time this powerful storm out for us.
Okay, Lindsay, it's a rough night in the Bahamas, especially central Bahamas. Still getting belted by this storm. No, it doesn't have that pristine structure it had when it slammed into Jamaica or Cuba, but it's still a powerful Cat 1 with 90-mile-per-hour winds. A lot of thunderstorms around it. There's been up to 10 inches of rain, a 7-foot surge, and it'll leave the Bahamas tonight after a rough night. Now, then it moves up, and it's probably just west of Bermuda tomorrow night. There could be a brief time where there's hurricane conditions there, and then it goes out in the Atlantic. The reason it's steered away, it's this storm. So we do pay a price for deflecting Melissa away in the terms of a windswept soaking rain along the I-95 corridor. It's a rough day. Some of the heaviest rains could be over New York City in the evening commute, then into New England. Now, we dry out for Halloween unless you're in the interior. The problem, Lindsay, is we've got big winds behind the storm. Could have some gusts to 40 miles an hour for trick-or-treaters. Lindsay?
All right. L to the G. Thanks so much. A verdict came down late today in the deadly police shooting of Sonia Massey in Illinois, a former deputy charged with murder, shooting and killing Massey in her kitchen after she called 911 to report a possible intruder. Body camera video showed the confrontation. The deputy testified in his own defense. ABC's Matt Rivers is in Illinois with the jury's decision.
Tonight, former Illinois Sheriff's Deputy Sean Grayson found guilty in the murder of Sonia Massey.
Sean Grayson is convicted of murder. He is a murderer now.
A jury of 9 women and 3 men deliberating for nearly 12 hours, considering charges of first or second-degree murder, ultimately settling on the lesser charge, second degree. Grayson now facing a sentence of 4 to 20 years in prison.
Sheriff's Office!
The trial lasting 7 days, the disturbing body camera video from July 2024 at its center. Then Deputy Sean Grayson and his partner responding to Sonia Massey's house near Springfield, Illinois, after she called to report a possible prowler. The situation escalating quickly after the deputies told Massey she could remove a pot of boiling water from the stove.
Away from your hot steaming water.
Away from my hot steaming water?
Yeah.
Oh, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
Grayson testifying in his own defense, telling the jury he believed Sonia Massey was going to throw the scalding water on him after using what he called threatening words.
Drop the pot! Drop the pot! 19 shots fired. Shots fired! Shots fired!
The former deputy asked why he used a gun instead of a taser. Grayson telling the jury he had an older model and Massey was wearing multiple layers of clothing, saying he didn't want to take the chance of it malfunctioning. Prosecutors calling Grayson an angry man with a gun, pointing out that the 36-year-old mother of 2 was suffering a mental health episode. And Grayson's partner testifying Massey never did anything that made me think she was a threat, and that it was Grayson's actions that raised my sense of awareness.
Say her name!
Tonight, Massey's family angry the jury did not convict on first-degree murder, still hoping for the maximum possible sentence.
The maximum allowable under law for the second-degree murder conviction. He is truly a murderer.
The family ultimately feeling that justice was served. Matt Rivers joins us now. Matt, when is the sentencing?
So as of now, Lindsay, the scheduled sentencing is January 29th. Grayson led out of the courtroom in handcuffs as he awaits that sentencing. Lindsay?
Matt, thank you. Now, today, 29 of the government shutdown. More than 40 million Americans are set to lose their food benefits soon. Republicans blame Democrats. Democrats say Republicans have refused to address health insurance premiums set to skyrocket for 20 million Americans. Jay O'Brien back on the Hill again tonight.
Tonight, after 29 days, the government shutdown showdown over health care costs for tens of millions of Americans now exploding into a food crisis hitting the country's most vulnerable. SNAP federal food assistance serving 42 million Americans set to run out of money in just 2 days. Many anxiously stocking up at food pantries.
It's hard to say we need help, especially as mamas, you know. We're supposed to take care of our babies, and when we can't, we need help.
In Arizona, Patricia Lamb stretches about $130 a week in SNAP benefits to feed herself and her grandchildren.
I have a week's worth of meals in here right now.
But this month's money is almost gone.
I'm at $2.45 right now, so that's kind of scary.
And tonight, President Trump suggesting his administration may find a way to keep SNAP afloat, but not giving any details. Republicans erupting on the Senate floor, blaming Democrats for refusing to end the shutdown.
SNAP recipients shouldn't go without food. People should be getting paid in this country. And we've tried to do that 13 times. And you voted no 13 times.
But Democrats blasting the Trump administration, saying in SNAP's 60-year history, even during shutdowns, the government has always found a way to keep the program afloat.
If SNAP does run out, tens of millions of Americans will go hungry. Are you getting a sense from your Democratic colleagues that the pain of that and other aspects of this shutdown might outweigh this fight for health care?
My Democratic colleagues are united in the fact that Trump and the administration can do this, not this weekend, tomorrow, today, right away. We don't want to pit health care and food. They do. We think you can have both.
Jay O'Brien joins us now from Capitol Hill. Jay, federal food benefits are not the only thing that Americans stand to lose. What else is at stake?
Yeah, Lindsay, this weekend will be the collision of two key issues of this shutdown. One of those SNAP benefits that are set to be halted this weekend. And then also this weekend is Obamacare open enrollment. Remember, Democrats say they're holding out their votes for an extension of Obamacare tax credits that, if they're not extended, would cause premiums to skyrocket for some 20 million Americans. Well, starting this weekend, Americans will log in, start to enroll into Obamacare insurance market exchanges, and see that their premiums, in some cases, have doubled, Lindsay.
Well, logjam there. Food and health. Jay, our thanks to you. The shutdown left the Federal Reserve without key data on exactly where the U.S. economy stands when they met today. But this afternoon, they proceeded to deliver the quarter-point cut that had been expected. It's the second rate cut this year. Our Elizabeth Schulze was at the Fed for today's announcement, and she joins us now. Elizabeth, how did the Fed come to this decision amid the shutdown?
And Lindsay, you're right. The government shutdown really does cloud the data for the Fed. They don't have a lot of the official government data they rely on to make these decisions about interest rate cuts. And that was really kind of the message that we heard today from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. He said, OK, we're moving forward with this rate cut today, which will lower borrowing costs today. So could potentially mean things like lower credit card rates, slightly lower borrowing costs for some consumers and businesses. But Powell then went on to say, we really don't know what the plan is from here. He didn't say clearly that there would be another rate cut this year in December. I had the chance to ask Fed Chair Powell about how they're thinking about the fact that inflation is still going up. Should American households, consumers expect that inflation will continue to go up this year because of those tariffs?
So the basic expectation is that there will be some additional increase in inflation because it takes a while for tariffs to work their way through the production chain and finally get to consumers.
Lindsay, not exactly what consumers want to hear ahead of the holiday shopping time, that we're going to see those prices continue to go up because of tariffs, possibly through next spring, he told me. And that's just a key reason why the Fed is on hold now, waiting to see how those inflation figures will play out, how the jobs market will play out, and it kind of wants to wait and see what will happen next with that cloudy outlook right now.
Yeah, cloudy for sure. How did the stock market respond?
Well, the stock market doesn't like a cloudy outlook. They want certainty, and investors had really been pricing in another rate cut this year and more rate cuts next year. So investors are saying, well, this isn't what we had in mind. So the stock market was lower on the back of this news. I mean, we have seen the stock market continue to hit record highs, Lindsay, week after week, fueled in part by the expectation that these lower rates will make it cheaper for businesses to borrow money. Another really key component there is just the growth that we've seen in some of the biggest companies in the stock market. But then this real question about what it means for households and how the Fed is looking at this question going forward. Not a lot of answers right there, and investors want answers. They don't like questions lingering.
All right, help us understand understand it all a bit more. Elizabeth Schulze, thanks so much.
Thanks, Lindsay.
We have new details and images in the case of the teacher shot and wounded by a first grader in Virginia tonight. For the first time, we are seeing body camera video showing the moments after that teacher was shot by the 6-year-old. Here's our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas.
Tonight, we see for the first time the tense, scary moments in the aftermath of a first grader shooting his teacher in an elementary school classroom in Newport News, Virginia in January 2023. There's Abby Zwerner after being shot in the chest and the hand, being carefully lifted by rescue workers trying to save her life. Moments later, she's in the ambulance, sirens blaring. That body camera video released during a trial involving Zwerner's $40 million lawsuit, alleging that a Newport News school administrator ignored multiple warnings from staff that the boy had a gun that morning. Today we learned that the bullet fired by the 6-year-old boy remains only inches from Zwerner's heart, still too dangerous to remove. And tonight, more details about just how dangerous and surreal it was.
As soon as he shot it, I was walking down the hall and I heard, and I went right in. Abby was in, the teacher was bloody. And she came out. She came out, we moved the kids out. JT. Stood there and I took JT. I was the one who called 911.
Lindsay, the trial continues tomorrow. We're waiting to see if the teacher will take the stand to give her account of what happened that tragic day. Lindsay?
Pierre, thank you. Tonight, the UN says Sudan's paramilitary forces killed hundreds of people at a hospital, including patients, after they seized the provincial capital of North Darfur. The bloodshed is a disturbing new chapter and a trying time for the country. Our Patrick Reevell has the latest. Patrick?
Lindsay, the images coming out of Sudan are horrifying, and humanitarian organizations are warning that what we are seeing are mass killings and large-scale ethnic cleansing. Over the weekend, the Rapid Support Forces, paramilitary rebels fighting against Sudan's army, seized the city of Al-Fasher in the Darfur region. Videos and testimonies suggest that since then, RSF fighters have been executing large numbers of civilians, often filming themselves as they do it. Now, videos show bodies in trenches and strewn in fields. Researchers at Yale University are studying satellite images that they say show piles of bodies from mass executions. To give a sense of the scale of the killing, they say that bloodstains on the ground are visible from the satellites. The WHO today said 460 people may have been killed at just one maternity hospital. Now, experts are making comparisons with the Rwandan genocide. Sudan's two-year civil war is estimated to have killed 150,000 and driven 14 million people from their homes. The capture of Al-Fasher means the RSF now controls all of Darfur, splitting the country in two. Experts say that we now may be seeing the final stage of the Darfur genocide that was attempted 2 decades ago, the non-Arab population being killed and driven out. And researchers warn that this is just the beginning of the killing. They warn that it could get worse and will get worse in the days ahead. And from the outside, there is no serious effort to stop it. Lindsay.
Just horrific images and scenes there. Patrick, thank you. Officials in Rio de Janeiro say that at least 121 people, including 4 police officers, were killed in a massive police raid on a drug gang embedded in low-income neighborhoods on Tuesday. Authorities originally said that the death toll was much lower. The operation, which involved 2,500 police and soldiers, was Rio's deadliest operation ever and has drawn criticism for excessive force. Rio state government says that those who were killed were resisting police. There are new developments in the case of the brazen jewelry heist at the Louvre in Paris. Prosecutors say the 2 suspects facing charges have partially admitted to being involved. A manhunt is still underway for the remaining suspects. None of the jewels have been recovered so far. Now authorities are saying it may have been an inside job. Here's ABC's Tom Sufi Burridge.
Tonight, Paris prosecutors say the 2 men who they believe helped execute this stunning $102 million heist of the Louvre have partially admitted their involvement. Bonsoir. Paris public prosecutor Laure Becco citing major progress in the investigation, more than a week after 2 suspects, dressed as construction workers, broke into the Louvre and made off with some of France's crown jewels. Inside for just 3 minutes 50 seconds, getting away on the back of high-powered scooters driven by 2 other suspects. Authorities not ruling out whether the gang of thieves are part of a larger group with a mastermind, adding nothing so far suggests the masked men had any accomplices inside the museum. More than 100 investigators poring over 150 fingerprint and DNA traces. Police tracking the pair after they matched one suspect's DNA to that window at the Louvre they cut open. The other man's DNA found on a motorbike used in their getaway.
Our thanks to Tom Sufi Burge. The NCAA has pushed back the start date for a rule that would allow college athletes to bet on professional sports. Less than a week ago, the NCAA approved the change to allow student athletes and school athletics department staff members to bet on professional sports. The change had been scheduled to take effect November 1st, but today the board of directors hit the pause button, delaying the rule change until November 22nd. AI chipmaker NVIDIA is now the world's first $5 trillion company. Just 3 months after the Silicon Valley chipmaker first broke the $4 trillion barrier, NVIDIA became the first company to hit the $5 trillion benchmark today. The company has received unprecedented demand for its chips, which are used for powerful AI systems such as ChatGPT. To put NVIDIA's value in context, it's currently higher than the GDP of India, Japan, or the United Kingdom. Coming up, Israel says it's resuming the ceasefire after its strikes overnight killed more than 100 people. But in tonight's Prime Focus, we take an in-depth look at the challenges all sides face that have many wondering how realistic is lasting peace in the Middle East. Early voting is underway for some key political races across the country. We'll take a look at what you should watch out for next Tuesday. And it's just been named Word of the Year. But unless you're a teen or the lucky parent of a teen, you may have never heard of it. We'll reveal it when we come back. Welcome back, everyone. Gaza's Hamas-run health ministry says more than 100 Palestinians were killed in a wave of Israeli strikes overnight. The Israeli military says they carried out a series of strikes on what they described as dozens of terror targets and terrorists. The IDF strikes came after Israel's defense minister accused Hamas of an attack in Gaza that killed an Israeli soldier and of breaching the terms of return deceased hostages' bodies. Today, Israeli defense forces say that they have begun the renewed enforcement of the ceasefire, but the events of the past 24 hours make it clear just how fragile that ceasefire is. Our Tom Sufi Burge has a look at how the historic agreement came together and the challenges all sides now face to turn it into a lasting peace.
After 2 years of war, Gaza is in ruins. And now, after 2 weeks, the fragile US-brokered ceasefire facing its biggest test. The IDF launching airstrikes overnight, killing more than 100 Palestinians, including more than 50 children, in less than 12 hours, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Israel saying it targeted terrorists and responded after one of its soldiers was killed in Gaza Tuesday. But amid US pressure, the truce is now back on. Before last night, the agreement allowing nearly 500,000 Palestinians to move back to ruined homes in northern Gaza, says the UN. As more desperately needed aid flows into the strip. Suleiman al-Najjar showing us the spot where his family lived and where he says 20 of his relatives died when a missile struck earlier in the war. Suleiman dreams one day Gaza will be rebuilt. His hope now is that the nightmare of war is over.
والله احنا رسالة للعالم احنا بدنا نعيش بسلام. والله ما بدنا أي حاجة غير هيك.
In Israel, the euphoria when 20 living hostages were released, replaced by the painful process of returning the dead. So far, 15 funerals after Hamas handed back some hostages' bodies under the deal. Ella Jaime saying goodbye to her husband Tal more than 2 years after he was killed. In Gaza, Arab allies of the US providing Hamas with heavy machinery as the search continues for 13 more dead hostages whose remains have not yet been returned.
Hi. Thanks for having us over. Yes, of course.
Orna and Ronan Neutra from Long Island, New York, are still waiting to bury their son Omer, an IDF tank commander who was killed during the October 7 terror attack.
You know, I've been imagining in my head the day when he's brought back to us. And I know I'm going to be devastated, but I also know it's really necessary.
How critical do you believe that US pressure is right now to keep this deal on track?
We absolutely believe that this deal would not have gone through without US pressure, and that the US is necessary in order to maintain it and to put all the different parts together so that hopefully, we can move forward to the next phases.
Under the next phase of President Trump's plan, Hamas should disarm and an international peacekeeping force be deployed. But recent images emerging from Gaza suggest Hamas is reasserting control. It's why some prominent Israelis believe the Trump plan will ultimately fail.
Hamas will not give up its weapons, and there is no one in the world that can take away their weapons, and they have no good reasons to give up their weapons and to agree to anything.
So Trump and others are making kind of empty threats at the moment, you believe?
I mean, Trump believes that the external pressure on Hamas from Qatar, Egypt, Turkey, and other countries might work. I don't believe that it will happen, but let's give it a chance.
The Trump administration is giving this peace process the time and energy of its top officials. Vice President Vance in Israel last week, pressuring all sides and expressing optimism that progress now could pave the way for a new era in the Middle East. And this Israeli shares that view.
I believe that the Americans won't let this fail, that they will use every tool in their diplomatic or undiplomatic toolbox to make sure that it happens.
Gershom Baskin has been communicating with Hamas for 18 years and says earlier this year he was passing messages between Hamas and Trump envoy Steve Witkoff without using Witkoff's name.
Witkoff said to me, if I see my name coming up in an Israeli intelligence report, that you're talking to Hamas and using my name, this channel is dead. So I called them the Americans or the guy from Washington or used all kinds of names like that, but everyone knew who we were talking about.
The White House would not confirm or deny Baskin's role. But he argues that after the war in Gaza, Hamas is all but finished. And that fellow Palestinians can persuade the remnants of the group to disarm. Also key to success, he says, is Donald Trump's power over Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Trump's strong relationship, not just with Israel, but with Gulf Arab states too.
We have never seen the kind of power diplomacy that's been employed here by the emissaries of the president, the envoys of the president, by the president himself. And, Trump locked Netanyahu into the deal, and Netanyahu could not say no. The American relationship with the region is much broader and deeper than it's ever been.
For now, getting beyond phase one of President Trump's deal is proving difficult. In Gaza, Palestinians have been burying the unidentified bodies of dozens of detainees returned by Israel as part of the agreement. This American Palestinian aid worker, who examined at least 10 corpses, says she saw clear evidence of torture.
Every single person that I looked at had their hands and feet bound, or like traces of their hands and feet were bound in some way. There were people whose fingertips were cut off.
The IDF rejects the allegations as, quote, false propaganda, saying all the bodies returned so far are from combatants within the Gaza Strip. The US brokering a deal between deep-seated enemies with a long legacy of death and destruction will test President Trump's ability to hold this fragile peace plan in place. The past 24 hours has shown a brighter future for Gaza is still some way off.
Is that attainable is still the question. Our thanks to Tom Sophie Burridge for that. Coming up, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and California, all just days away from major elections where voters are casting their ballots early by the numbers. And later, whether you've been a fan of his work on The Daily Show or on stand-up stages, you'll want to hear what Roy Wood Jr. is dishing out now. We're talking with him about his new memoir and a brand new show. Welcome back, everyone. We are just under a week out from Election Day, and while this year is not a presidential or midterm election, there are still some key races happening nationwide. And in those states, a significant number of voters have already cast their ballots ahead of Tuesday. ABC News political director Avery Harper will join us for more in a moment. But first, let's take a look at these vote tallies so far by the numbers. Today is the 5th day of early voting in New York City ahead of the competitive mayoral race. Nearly 300,000 people had voted early as of the end of the day yesterday, according to the city's Board of Elections. Compare that to just over 55,000 people across the city who had voted early at the same point before the 2021 election. Brooklyn alone had just over 92,000 early votes by the end of the day yesterday, the highest number of all the 5 boroughs. As for some of the major races elsewhere, more than 734,000 ballots had been cast early for the New Jersey gubernatorial race as of the end of the day yesterday, according to data compiled by the AP. Meanwhile, just under 987,000 early votes had been cast in Virginia for the state's gubernatorial race as of midday yesterday. And in California, more than 4.7 million had cast ballots in the state's Proposition 50 vote on redistricting. With just 6 days remaining, these candidates for governor and mayor have been busy with events to try to get the remaining votes out in races that can have an enormous impact for their states and the entire country. For more on this home stretch before Election Day, we're joined by ABC News political director Avery Harper. Thanks so much for joining us, as always, Avery. As we mentioned just now, the early vote count in New York City is significantly higher than at the same point in the last mayoral race back in 2021. This, of course, has been a very tense race. Is that why you think these voting numbers are high, or are there other factors behind it?
Well, I think it could be for a few reasons. You have to remember that voting is habitual, and early voting is relatively new in New York State. It was first implemented in 2019, so it could just be that folks are more comfortable voting early than they were back in 2021. Also, it could be an indicator of enthusiasm in this race. There's lots of attention on this race. It could be anti-Trump sentiment. In a very liberal New York, this is one of the first times in a general election that voters are able to head to the polls, and that could be a mobilizing factor to get voters out to the polls this season.
And for the gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia, where a large number of votes have been cast already as well, what's the latest that we're hearing about those races?
Right, when you look at the polling there, we see the Democrats leading in those races. That's Mikey Sherrill in New Jersey and Abigail Spanberger in Virginia. They're leading the Republican candidates, Lieutenant Governor Winsome Earl-Sears in Virginia, and Jack Ciattarelli, who is the Trump-endorsed candidate in New Jersey. But we're going to have to wait and see exactly what happens there. I mean, it's important to note when you look back at 2024, these are places where Kamala Harris won in both states. But there were significant shifts in terms of the electorate. They shifted right toward Donald Trump. And so I'm interested to see what happens there.
And for the Prop 50 vote in California, how could that vote change the makeup of the House?
Right. It's all about redistricting. This is an effort to redraw congressional districts in that state in favor of Democrats. It's an effort that Democrats in that state say is to combat some of the redistricting or redrawing of congressional districts in Republican-led states that we have seen that are designed to draw some more pickup opportunities for Republicans. Essentially, what could happen here if Democrats are successful in that state, and polling suggests that they might be, is that we'll see a shrinking of the competitive number of House races that are up for re-election next year. So it could be a really big deal in terms of the control of the House.
Avery Harper, thanks so much for your insight. I know you'll be joining us this coming Tuesday night when Prime is live from 7 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, covering all of the results. And coming up, Dictionary.com announces its new word of the year. We'll tell you what it is. And our conversation with comedian and author Roy Wood Jr., now out with a new memoir and stand-up special. We'll be right back. Dictionary.com has come out with the most curious word of the year, the shark attack survivor who lost a foot and is now running in the New York City Marathon. And why did a professor earn a Guinness record for his playing of Dungeons and Dragons? These stories and more in tonight's rundown. Dictionary.com has announced its word of the year. It is 6-7. The term's exact origin is a bit unclear, but teachers and parents began hearing kids use it last year, and some say it can be interpreted as another way of saying so-so, maybe this, or maybe that. Other terms that were finalists include broligarchy, over-tourism, and tradwife. A manhunt is now underway for a crew dressed in neon construction vests who broke into a home in Queens, New York, and stole a safe containing jewelry valued at more than $3.2 million, according to police. The suspects, almost unidentifiable in hard hats, face masks, and sweatshirts, fled in a blue Hyundai Elantra. Investigators say the victim is a jeweler and that the burglary was likely targeted. 25-year-old shark attack survivor Allie Truitt will run the New York Marathon this weekend, just 2 years after traveling to the Caribbean on vacation and encountering an aggressive shark while snorkeling, which bit off her foot and part of her leg. Truitt received a prosthetic leg below her knee and has since won 2 Paralympic swimming medals. She says resilience is the key to overcoming hardship.
I think we are sitting on wells of capacity that we don't know we have in us.
2 critically endangered tortoises stolen from the Indianapolis Zoo weeks ago have been safely recovered. The local police department said that they received a call Tuesday from park visitors who, while walking on a sidewalk behind the park's museum, came across a cardboard box. The box was said to have a paper plate on top with a note referencing the zoo. Inside, there were 2 tortoises. Police say the incident is under investigation. General Motors is laying off more than 1,700 workers at manufacturing sites in Ohio and Michigan amid struggling electric vehicle sales. The layoffs will impact the Ultium battery plant in Ohio and GM's Detroit EV plant. The cut comes nearly a month after federal tax credits for electric vehicles expired. Buyers of new EVs were previously eligible for a $7,500 credit, but that credit expired with the passage of the Big Beautiful Bill earlier this year. Buyers of used EVs were entitled to a $4,000 credit. Robert Wardaw has set a record for the longest-running Dungeons & Dragons game. The Ontario history professor started the game back in 1982 with friends, and estimated more than 500 players have come and gone through the ranks of his campaign. The popular tabletop fantasy role-playing game is brought to life in Wardaw's basement, which has more than 30,000 miniature figures along with dozens of set pieces meant to enhance the realism of the game and keep players rolling the dice for even more years to come. He's been a fan favorite during his nearly decade-long run on The Daily Show, and from television to stand-up stages, Roy Wood Jr.'s sharp wit and bold takes on everyday life have made him one of comedy's most distinctive voices. Now he's pulling back the curtain on his personal life journey in his new memoir and taking the stage again with a fresh Hulu comedy special that promises to be as honest, hilarious, and thought-provoking as ever. Let's take a look.
We ain't been right since COVID, man. We don't talk, we don't interact, we don't chit-chat no more. We don't even like talking on the phone. We get mad if the phone rings. The phone that was invented for talking. You get mad. Oh, hell no.
So funny as always. Joining us now is comedian author Roy Wood Jr. Thanks so much for coming back on the show.
Yeah, I got author in my title.
Yeah, you got a lot of hats.
Yeah,
a lot of hats. But in particular here, you're talking about the hat of being a father.
Yeah.
And what struck me really, right away, you talk very early on in the book about, you say, son, when you were born, I went through something that day. Tell us how transformational that was, becoming a father.
I think you immediately start thinking about the things that you want to do for your child, and then you inherently start thinking about how were those things done for you, and then you start seeing the gaps. And it's impossible to be a parent without doing an audit of your parents, and you start realizing, you know, my father passed when I was 16. Well, if I didn't learn it from him, who did I learn it from? And I started listing values, I started listing people I learned them from, and it just became this series of stories that originally was just supposed to be for him. It wasn't supposed to be for anybody else.
Right, because you started out with a letter to my son.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a Word document for my son to find years later after I'm dead and gone. And it just became something much more than that. And it sent me down a journey of also learning that to be the best possible father, I have to accept the things that I didn't get from my parents.
While you concentrate primarily on men, different fathers, in a different sense,
Yes.
not biological fathers, but male influences. You do have one woman, your mother Joyce, who you include.
First chapter.
How was she transformational in you becoming a man?
I learned resilience and perseverance from my mother, And I did not learn that from anyone else.
I want to turn to your Hulu comedy special.
Yeah.
And you explain the title, Lonely Flowers, with a metaphor. Explain the meaning for us.
We're all a series of lonely flowers. We're siloed because of whatever belief or whatever argument you're having with somebody on Facebook, be it broad in politics or be it whether or not you put mayo on a hot dog, like Kendrick versus Drake, like what? Yeah. Pick your battle. We're separated now. Yeah. And so I really, the special, it's funny, but it really is a deeper dive into how we've become disconnected and how much better and beautiful we would be as a society if we could try to stand side by side.
Of course, fans are also raving about, I got news for you. What does it feel like to put the anchor suit back on and talk about the hot takes of the week? You know, it's a good time, man. I like the show because we just get to summate everything that happened. And, you know, the Daily Show, as much of a responsibility, there's more of a responsibility with the Daily Show because you're trying to find solutions. You're trying to find out who's responsible for what went wrong. Whereas with our show, if you didn't watch a single piece of the news all week, you can at least watch us and know what happened, know who the players are. Myself, my team captains, Amber Ruffin and Michael Ian Black. It's just a joy to also be around them and work with them every week. You have a funny hot take of this week? Oh, no. I don't know what's funny right now. It's tough. Like it's like they'll go, oh, what's funny this week? Well, there's a Category 5 hurricane, and then SNAP benefits might expire. You know what? I don't know. I can't find anything funny in that. And so I think that's what makes all of this, you know, so incredulous, is that you can have all of these crazy things going on, and then somehow you can still have people who would rather play golf. On that note, Roy Wood Jr., we thank you so much for joining us today. I've said enough. The Man of Many Fathers is now available wherever books are sold, and be sure to catch Lonely Flowers, now streaming on Hulu. And that is our show for this hour. I'm Linsey Davis. Be sure to stay tuned to ABC News Live for more context and analysis of the day's top stories. Thanks so much for streaming with us.